God doesn't typically say what we want to hear. We have dreams at night. He doesn't always show us what we want to see. And I think that is one of the reasons why people struggle when it comes to praying and asking God things. And so in today's episode of You, Me, and Jesus, we're just going to uncover a little bit some of the reasons why people do not want to hear God. So welcome back to another episode of the You, Me, and Jesus podcast, where we talk about all things you, me, and Jesus. Today, we're having a conversation about why I think that people don't want to hear God or don't want to pray to God or listen to God or whatever. And, if I could be honest, I have had my fair share of times when I'm like, I don't even want to ask him. I don't even want to ask him because I know what he's going to say or whatever. And so I just want to talk about that just a little bit, and maybe it will help you or help somebody. Now, I do want to do something fun and see what will Google say if I ask Google why people don't want to hear God. Let me see. Why do people not want to hear God? All right. Oh man, that's Bing. Okay, let me go to Google really quickly. I don't know why my computer always goes to Bing, but anyway, okay, let's go to Google. Why do people not want to hear God? And so then their AI is going to give us some stuff. So Google says some people are convinced that God does not exist and they want to spend their time better than hearing God. Some people do not want to hear a monologue about your version of God because they have their version and you may not be open to conversations. Okay. Let me see. Why do Christians, let's see what it says about Christians. Sometimes not want to hear God. Okay. And let's see if there's anything different. It might not be, but we'll see. Many people can't hear God's voice because they're unsure if they want to. Many people can't hear God's voice because they're unsure if they want to. Deep down, they know that they're living. Oh man, wow. Deep down, they know that they aren't living in a God-honoring way. So rather than coming close to God, they run further away from him. Oh my God. Who wrote that? Wow. So yeah, I agree. This episode's over. It's like, I agree. So let's just unpack that for just a little while, a little bit. When I think about, okay. Cause it's one thing to want to have a relationship with God, want to talk to God, and want to hear God. I believe that at the core of our being, that we know that there is something that is outside of us, that we know that there's a being, right? And some people will say that there isn't a God, whatever. I think at the core of us, we believe and know. And I think that in the complicated world that we live in, sometimes we can find it to where we have heard certain things about God. People have said certain things. We experience certain things at church or with church people, Christians or whatever. And so we have this view of who God is, how God is, and all these things. And all of that kind of shapes us, right? And so if you have a positive experience of God, then that shapes you. If you have a negative experience of God, then that shapes you, right? And I think that in the complicatedness of it all, that could cause you to either want to talk to God and pray to him or not. But in addition to that, I think that we live in a world where we have options, right? We can hear God and do what he says. We can hear God and not do what he says, or we can choose not to hear God at all and make our own choices. Right? Or not hear God at all because we don't want to know what he would tell us to do, because we want to do what we want to do. Right. And I think there's lots of reasons why people don't want to hear God. And I don't think it is just like a one and done. So here's some of the reasons why I think that people don't want to hear God. I think that first off is that, one, they don't really know if it's him. They don't really know if what they're hearing is him or if it's themselves or if it's other people. And for that reason, people are afraid of what they're hearing, right? Of like, if this is the right thing, if I choose this way, or this thing or whatever, is that the right way? Because I don't really know if I'm hearing God, right? And honestly, I can appreciate that. You know, I've had times in my life, more times than not, where God is talking to me about something and I'm not really sure about what I'm hearing. I'm not really convinced that what I'm hearing is actually from God. It's just all the complexities of that, and that is very scary to not know if you do X, if what's going to happen as a result. That would scare anybody, And so I think that we deal with the fear of hearing wrong and making the wrong mistake. I think that we deal with the fear of when we do what he's asking us to do, that it's going to take us to a place that we don't want to be at. Like, for example, if God tells me to move to a city, like he has a lot in the past, and we don't really know what's going to happen when we get there. Like, there's no roadmap. Typically, when God tells us to do something, he doesn't really give us everything. He just gives us some and gives us a permission to obey, and like the faith or whatever to obey. And I think that people deal with, like, I don't really know what's going to happen on the other side of me hearing him and doing what he says. While I also feel like that there are times when we don't want to hear what God has to say because we know what he's going to say. We know that what he's going to say is something that we don't want to hear. It's something we need to hear, but it's not something that we want to hear. I had a friend, I'm not God. I had a friend who used to tell me, I can only handle you once a year. And I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, because you tell me what I need to hear, not what I want to hear. I'm like, but isn't that friendship? Shouldn't I tell you that, And so when I think about God and us, I think that sometimes we are like the same way. We're like, I want to do what I want to do, and I don't want to know what you think. I don't know what you want me to do because I want to do what I want to do. And then when I'm ready, I'll come to you, right? And it's kind of like, it reminds me like of our parents, like we know our parents have our best interest in mind. We also know that they're not always right. And sometimes we just want to do this thing. We just want to do this thing or whatever it is. And so we don't go to our parents to ask them, what do they think? Because we know that they're going to tell us, don't do it. Right. Or don't, whatever the thing is, And I think that that's a big thing that happens with people when it pertains to God. Is like, I don't want to do that. That's just not what I want to do, or what I want to hear. And I think that keeps people from actually talking to him. But if more people actually talked to him and did what he said, people would be amazed at what they hear. And as a result of when they do what they hear, what the results will be of all that, like God is really not a fan of me being on dating apps. And I always go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth with the dating apps. I'm just being honest. And one time I asked him, it took me a long time before I asked. And I said, why? And he said, because it's going to do more harm than good. And I was like, what? He said, it's going to do more harm than good. You're not going to feel good about yourself when you get off of those apps. And so I'm telling this to help you, not to hurt you. And so in those times when I want to go and re-download Hinge and all these different things, I keep remembering what he's telling me is that this is going to hurt you more than it's going to help you. But it took me a long time to ask him because I wanted to do what I wanted to do. You know what I mean? But now I know better because I'm like been developing a relationship with him. I'm still not perfect, obviously. So I understand when a person just doesn't want to, they don't want to do it. They don't want to obey it. They just want to do what they want to do. I completely get it, but I want to encourage you that he has your best interest in mind, right? That what he's telling you is not to hurt you. It's not to keep you from something good. It's always to give you something, his best, right? And his best doesn't always look like what you think it looks like. His best doesn't always come when you want it to come. You know, it's like his best is his best whenever his timing is, which is easier said than done, you know, but his best is his best. It's just his best and when his best is, you know. And I keep like reminding myself, like I have these moments where I'm like, it's been 10 years since I was married, since I've been intimate and all that. And I see people popping up, getting married, just popping up. And I'm like, man, what's going on? And I have to celebrate them. And then I have to also say, God is promising you, like his best is coming. His best is coming. You may not feel like it's coming. You may be like, where is it? But it's coming. And I have to keep reminding myself of that so that I'm not frustrated. So I don't take matters into my own hands, you know? Don't get me wrong. I went on a live show last night. A friend of mine was like, you should get on this dating live show. And it was fine. It was, you know, whatever. It was fine. It was fun. But it's still in his hands on what he's going to do, you know? And so if you're someone and you are finding yourself struggling to pray to God because you don't want to hear him, I would encourage you to ask yourself the question, who cares more about you than the person that created you? No one. There's nobody, not even you, that cares about you, like in the greatest way other than God. You care about you a lot, but he cares about you way more, right? And I would encourage you to don't run from the one person that cares about you more than anybody else in the world. Let him guide you and just go on your journey with him. You know, of whatever it looks like. Sometimes it's going to be wailing, crying. Sometimes you're going to be angry or whatever, but go on the journey with him because my life is completely different because I've gone on a journey with him, and it's going to be continuously better and different and all that because I'm on a journey with him. And I encourage you to do the same.